This is the sixth edition, and we'll continue those stories that are making the headlines today, starting out with the situation in the U.S. war with Iran. Now, the United States Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says ongoing military action against Iran is not aimed at rebuilding or reforming the Islamic Republic. He told reporters at the Pentagon that the objective is to achieve decisive outcomes without prolonged engagement. Hegseth stated that operations would avoid extended stabilization campaigns and focus strictly on combat goals. Top military officer Dan Kane said American forces have established local air superiority over Iran, confirming that recent strikes have enabled greater operational freedom in Iranian airspace.
America, regardless of what so-called international institutions say, is unleashing the most lethal and precise air power campaign in history. B-2s, fighters, drones, missiles, and of course, classified effects. All on our terms, with maximum authorities. No stupid rules of engagement, no nation-building quagmire, no democracy-building exercise, no politically correct wars. We fight to win, and we don't waste time or lives.
The combined impact of these strikes, swift, precise, and overwhelming, has resulted in the establishment of local air superiority. This air superiority will not only enhance the protection of our forces, but also allow them to continue the work over Iran.
Meanwhile, Lebanon's President Joseph Aoun has convened an emergency cabinet meeting after a sharp escalation between Hezbollah and Israel. The strikes followed an overnight rocket and drone attack claimed by Hezbollah, targeting an Israeli military site near Haifa. The group said the assault was retaliation for the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, during a reported joint U.S.-Israeli operation. In the meantime, Britain is allying the United States to use UK military bases for what Downing Street is calling limited defensive strikes against Iranian missile systems. But Prime Minister Keir Starmer's state insists the UK will not take part in offensive action. The move comes amid escalating tensions in the Gulf after Iran launched strikes that narrowly missed British personnel in Bahrain. Starmer says the decisions about collective self-defense and protecting both British forces and the estimated 200,000 UK nationals currently in the region. Our senior international correspondent Afia Hagan reports.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the UK will allow the United States to use British bases for what he describes as limited defensive strikes against Iranian missile systems, but insists Britain will not take part in offensive action. In a video message posted to social media, Starmer made clear the UK was not involved in the initial strikes on Iran and would not join any broader military campaign. However, he said Iran's actions had forced allies to respond.
We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region. And we will also bring experts from Ukraine together with our own experts to help Gulf partners shoot down Iranian drones attacking them.
Starmer confirmed that Washington has requested permission to use UK bases, specifically to target Iranian missiles and launchers, describing the move as part of collective self-defense. The Prime Minister said the decision was deliberate, stressing that Britain believes the best path forward remains a negotiated settlement. But he argued that stopping the immediate threat meant destroying missiles at source, either in storage depots or launch sites. Earlier, Britain joined France and Germany in a joint statement, saying they were prepared to defend their interests and allies in the Gulf through defensive action if necessary. The Prime Minister also warned that the crisis directly affects British nationals. He said at least 200,000 UK citizens are currently in the region, including residents, holidaymakers and business travellers, and has urged them to register with the Foreign Office and follow official travel advice. That advice includes instructions for Britons in Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and the UAE to shelter in place. Starmer added that the threat from Iran also endangers British armed forces. On Saturday, an Iranian strike hit a military base in Bahrain, narrowly missing British personnel. The situation remains volatile, with diplomatic efforts continuing alongside heightened military tensions. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
And I'm being joined to discuss this by Nick Agule, a public affairs analyst who's joining us from London, and Ejike Opa, a global affairs analyst, also joining us from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Let me start with you, Nick. The UK deciding that what they call it that it's not like an all-out open participation in this escalating situation in the Gulf. But what does that say of its relationship in terms of allies with the US and Israel?
Thank you very much for that question. I think in terms of diplomatic engagement, it depends on how much of this war planning had allies on board. The question is, the likes of the UK, were they involved? Was it a joint decision, or this is just the United States with this, on the spur of the moment, going on ahead to strike Iran? Because forget, the United States and Iran were around the table in talks. So how did it not end up with strikes? So one thing we must understand is that war is very expensive, not only in the financial and material cost, but also human lives are lost in war. And also the fact that Starmer, the British Prime Minister, is not having it easy at home as well. So a war is not what he's going to jump into, embracing it with both hands without watching the mood of the people. Because let's not forget, before now, he has been under fire and his position has continuously been threatened as a result of not himself directly related to the Epstein scandal or files, but that the fact that he appointed an ambassador to the United States who ended up being a very close ally of Epstein. So given all that, I'm not surprised with the approach that the British Prime Minister is taking at this time. And I think that what he's doing now is perhaps the best he can do, given the whole situation surrounding this current exercise in the Gulf against Iran by the United States.
Okay, AGK. Okay, so limited defensive strikes. But then that doesn't say limited partnership or relationship, as the case may be. But then we do understand what Nick has said, because Starmer has a situation in his own terrain that he wouldn't want to affect his political future. But at the same time, we know what's happened since this whole situation started, how Iran has somewhat, yes, targeting US locations in these different countries that are its neighbors, yet these different countries have had, how do you call it, collateral damage owing to this. So how would this work out at the end of the day?
Are you asking me?
Yes, AGK.
Well, thank you for having me. This is, excuse my voice, this is a case of medicine after death. America planned this stuff, America did it. America's action is subject to interpretation, and we are all entitled to those interpretations. But what matters is that, if UK is not going to be agreeing with Iran or whomever, whether this is a seven-phase gesture, we don't know. The point is, the supreme leader wasn't very supreme. He was killed within hours of this thing happening. It was even like Saddam Hussein that it took months, and what is the other guy for the 9/11 that took years. So my point is, countries should now begin to look at themselves, at their own capacity, especially when you get on the global stage and you're wagging your fingers at somebody who is going to bite it and bite it off effortlessly. And so whether it's limited or whether it's an open-ended invitation, we're going to see. We're going to wait and see what happens. This is not a war. There are not American soldiers in Iran. This is a demonstration of superior air power, and that air power was enabled because of the carriers that are positioned around to take off. And like you say in Nigeria, make you go show them. You show them. If you want to cry, keep crying. The point is that America has shown that they are superior power in the world. Not even China, that depends on Iranian oil, could even foresee this thing coming. If China is all that, how come China didn't get in there before America did what it is, or even Russia? So let's just move on and say we're hoping that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. But it has happened. You know what they say? Just do it. The Nike logo, just do it.
Just do it. Okay.
And then we did it.
Okay. All right. So this is done. But at the end of the day, we're looking at the impact of this. Oil prices are going up right now and approaching at over $80 per barrel as we speak, as we're having this conversation. At the time I checked, at about 1 or 2 p.m., it was about $80 per barrel. I don't know what the situation is right now. So if we're going to go by that, there are those who are arguing that this is, as AGK, you have said this is not a war. This is a demonstration of superior air power. But some other people say this is a case of propaganda. No outright war is going on here. Where do we go? Nick, you want to weigh in before AGK comes in?
Yes. So when it comes to oil prices, Nigeria is in a position where it's like a double-edged sword for us, because on the one hand, the budget funding for the budget is going to improve. And by the way, I checked oil prices shortly before we came on, and the oil Brent, which is a type of crude oil, is now trading around the $77 range.
Okay.
So obviously, as the war is ongoing and it's looking like it's going to be a walkover, the markets will recover and then there will be stability. But if it was looking like it was going to be an all-out bloody war, of course, oil will be touching $90 by now. So the Nigerian benchmark price, the 2026 budget was $64. So this is good news for Nigeria that we are now selling $10 above what we budgeted. So on the fiscal side, that is good news. But then, and in fact, this has been the issue in Nigeria, because you ask the government people, they will tell you that we are doing well in terms of foreign reserves, in terms of inflation coming down, in terms of forex exchange rate stability. They tell you about those macroeconomic indices, and they are looking good, which is true.
Okay.
But if you ask a typical Nigerian, how is your life going?
He's
going to tell you that his transportation.
Okay.
Sorry?
Nick, I'm sorry. I really have to interrupt you because we need to get AGK to weigh in for 30 seconds because we're out of time, gentlemen. I'm sorry. President Trump took much of our time. We would have had more time. But AGK, let's look at how all of this is affecting regional stability in the Middle East and international diplomacy. Propaganda and outright war, air power, whatever. 30 seconds, please, AGK.
If men were angels, there wouldn't be need for politics. Okay, so men are not angels. We are not angels. You're going to have propaganda, and there's no end to it. In terms of oil prices going up, It's very unfortunate that with stuff like this happening, Nigerians keep to beat, start beating their chest. The most time Nigeria ever made money in oil revenue was when Obasanjo was there. I think it was something like 72 billion or something billion because of the Gulf War thing. The stability in the region is like an earthquake. It's going to come and it's going to go. What matters is in our countries to now focus on their own internal capacity and take advantage of whatever it is they can take advantage, because it's not going to be for a long term. This may be a short spike. For those of us that live in America, some politics or some statements makes it the stock price go boom, go down, up and down. It's always that up and down stuff. So, the point is, hey, over the weekend, everybody was glued to the TV and the news and saw what happened. We got to look ahead. Things about life is the future, not the history.
All right.
Somebody was talking about how Iran is, 5,000 years ago, has been around for 5,000. I've always said it's not how long you've been around, it's how well you are. America is the youngest country of all these countries, younger than China. But guess what? Like we say in Texas, if you got the stick, don't hesitate to use it.
All right.
So we whack them and they're not feeling it.
All right, thank you so much. Nick Agule is the public affairs analyst, joined us from London. And we also had Ejike Okpa, global affairs analyst from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, gentlemen. As you said, we'll look inwards and see where we can draw strength. Thank you. We will take a break, and when we return, Police Council endorses Tunji Disu as substantive Inspector General of Police, Nigeria. Do stay with us. Welcome back. The Nigeria Police Council has unanimously approved the appointment of Olatunji Disu as the 23rd Inspector General of Police in Nigeria. The decision was reached at a meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu at the Council chamber in the State House, Abuja. The Council, chaired by the President and comprising the 36 state governors, the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, and the Inspector General of Police, convened following the resignation of the former IGP Kayode Egbetokun.
At the deliberation, we went through his records, his performance in office, and the recommendation. And the council was glad to approve the recommendation for him to be appointed the Inspector General of Police. He has his work cut out for him, especially in this age of talks about state police. Now, the challenges are there. He's been through it. He did a major assignment with the Rapid Response in Lagos State and FCT, so he has a record to show that he can perform.
And today's police council meeting, there were other colleagues who also attest to the fact that when he worked in their various states, that he actually did excel. So we want to commend Mr. President for identifying, such skills, such, officers that are not only ready to serve or hit the ground running, but they've demonstrated this over the years.
And to a bit of politics, the Independent National Electoral Commission has assured Nigerians of its readiness to deploy technology, including the electronic transmission of results for the 2027 general elections. Chairman of the Commission, Professor Joash Amupiton, gave the assurance during a citizens' town hall meeting in Abuja themed Electoral Act 2026, what it means for your votes and the 2027 elections. While assuring stakeholders that the upcoming general elections will be the best ever witnessed, he played down expectations that the polls will be perfect. New Central's Aisha Saliu reports.
The forum brought together civil society organizations, political parties, lawmakers, and other key stakeholders to deliberate on the implementation of the new electoral law ahead of the upcoming general elections. The contentious real-time transmission of election results, electoral transparency in a free and fair environment were also brought to the front burner as discussion inflamed emotions among participants. INEC maintains it is ready to transmit results, but logistical challenges for real-time transmission of results remain.
INEC will strive as much as possible to give this country the best election. However, we may not be able to achieve 100% perfect election for now. But as far as electronic transmission of results is concerned, I said it before FCT Area Council that we have the capacity to transmit the results. and that we're going to transmit the results. The only concern was real time.
How do we ensure that when people vote, result and vote align, result declared and the result of vote align?
We should not take the provisos that are added to the electronic transmission of voters as though it is something that just accept it like that, manage it, as Nigerians normally say, no managing.
Other gaps were equally flagged with the Electoral Act 2026, which stakeholders say it begs to be addressed ahead of 2027 general elections.
The review that you have to go back and begin to put NIN and all, the time to do all that is, and then the time for primary election, it is difficult to meet up, if not impossible. I don't see any party that will be now that doesn't have whatever that you have to start going back now to review.
For the campaign limit now, presidential campaign for 2022 is 5 billion. Now it's been taken to 10 billion. And for governorship is 1 billion. It's been taken to 3 billion. Many people who want to go in for elections, where are they going to get 1 billion?
There's still a lot of errors, and I'm not sure if you've gone through it, and you'll notice that there are things from typos. So there is still time to amend those things. And in addition to that, because there was speed, because the normal process will be before the president signs it, you should have had a copy to read. So you could have marked off all those errors and say, oh, before you sign it, this contradicts this contradicts this.
The Electoral Act 2026 introduces clearer provisions on electronic accreditation and result management, tighter timelines for political party primaries, stricter penalties for electoral malpractice, and enhanced oversight mechanisms aimed at strengthening Nigeria's democracy. In Abuja, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
In the meantime, as the 2027 elections approach, it appears old divisions are already resurfacing. However, a coalition of grassroots leaders is urging the citizens to rise above sectional politics and judge candidates by their record, competence, and their integrity, not their ethnic background. The group says Nigeria cannot afford another cycle driven by identity alone. Well, I'm being joined by Bemba Iotium, who is here in the studio, an advocate of local government autonomy. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope I pronounced your name well.
Yeah, you tried Iotium.
Iotium.
Yes.
Iotium. Okay.
Right.
Bemba Iotium. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure once again be here.
This matter of the Electoral Act 2026, I mean, it's been signed into law. And you heard in that citizens' town hall yesterday, people talking about the need to, that there are some errors that need to be looked at. And we heard Ezekwesili say we shouldn't even look at those provisos rather. But what do you think about the Electoral Act?
Yeah, there are quite a number of highlights there. The issue of electronic transmission of results, the mode of primaries to be adopted by political parties, the timeline for submission of a list of candidates to INEC by political parties, the timelines for INEC to publish list of candidates for the general elections and all of that, funding of INEC, and then, expenditure, spending caps by candidates, and all of this. But then if you look at it deep down, there are, to me, two sticking points there. Mm-hmm. Electronic transmission of results at the polling units, and the issue of mode of primaries. Now, of course, citizens are upbeat about the issue of transmission of results because it has always been the desire of Nigerians that let's have real-time transmission of results from the polling units direct to the INEC server. Because that way, Nigerians feel the process will be more credible. They will have more confidence and they hope that their votes will count. But all said and done, beyond the anger of citizens and all that, let's face the facts. We have the issue of technological infrastructure. We are looking at a system which must be powered by technology. For you to be able to transmit results in real time from the polling units to the INEC server, you need to have very strong network on ground.
We'll go at a quick break. Yeah. But when we come back, you mentioned citizens, you talked about technology. There are those who will argue with you that right now, Mr. Iotiom, we're able, in the remotest part of this country, whether there is road or no road, we have people with the POS device who are able to do financial transactions real time, and they transfer huge sums. You agree with me, right?
Yeah, I agree. I agree
so
with you.
Why do we always hang on to this technology thing as if that's a major problem when we can do that financially, but we are afraid of allowing that for our election?
That needs to be fixed. That's the point I was driving at.
Okay.
That's the point. I wasn't defending it.
Okay. We'll come back. Yeah. We'll take a moment. We'll come back because there's when you mention citizens, we need to look at how citizens even see the elections. Yeah. We'll do that in a moment. Just stay with us. Welcome back. We still have Mr. Bengba Iotiom here in the studio. Before we went on that break, we're talking about the Electoral Act, which has, and then a few issues here and there that have been looked at. You talked about resolving the technology issue and the party primaries. Yes, that's a sore thumb for you. Yeah. But before when you were going there, you mentioned the citizens, and we are already seeing what happened in 2023, for instance, where we saw tribe, ethnicity, and all of those things creating divisions among the citizenry. Some would be wondering, would the citizens even think to unite in terms of like looking at competence instead of looking at tribe and all of that? Even with this Electoral Act, can Nigeria be united in the next election, even with this Electoral Act?
Yeah, that's one area that the leadership elite, those of us who are, agitating about the defects and the shortcomings, the shortfalls in the Electoral Act, we are looking at putting the blame on the government, those who are in authority. That's fine. They should improve on things. They should improve on those areas that we are finding we have dissatisfaction with. But then the citizens have their own part to play. We are the ones who vote. We are the ones who are led to take the decisions, why the leadership elite only harvest the decisions that we take. And that is where the efforts that are being championed now, being pushed by the Nalgon Emeritus, that's the
former local government.
Yeah, former local government chairman headed by Shaba Ibrahim, and chaired by Senator for Zamfara West and former governor of Zamfara State, Senator Abdulaziz Yari. That's where their efforts come in, as instructive now. We are talking about citizens being conscientized to understand that we can only have a credible electoral process which comes from the people on the basis that they are voting for candidates on the basis of the competence that they see in those candidates. No longer on the basis of those primordial considerations like where a candidate comes from, is from my own ethnic group, is from my own religious background, is from my own region, and all of those things. This is the sticking point for me, because you have put in place the best electoral system. Yet, if you have a citizenry that is not oriented properly to understand the core imperatives of leadership recruitment and putting in place the right people into offices of public trust, we are still going to have the same problem. It's not about just what the electoral process says. It's about what the citizens want. It should be a transactional thing.
Because good or bad governance will be enjoyed by by all tribes.
All tribes and all of that. So citizens' orientation is key. The people need to understand that for us to have a Nigeria that works for every one of us, we need to, on our own, go out there at the polling units, through our ballot, put in place those people who represent the kind of Nigeria that we want. You don't just put in place anyone on the basis, oh, he's from my own tribe. At the end of the day, those people who you voted into office, who were from your own tribe, how did they better your lot?
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Bengba Iotiom is a local government autonomy advocate. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you.
We do appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on, the People's Democratic Party has officially denied reports of ongoing nationwide congresses ahead of the 2027 elections. National Chairman Kabir Tanimu Turaki, senior local of Nigeria, labeled the rumors as false information spread by expelled members. The leadership accused these individuals of conspiring with the ruling party to derail the party's democratic mission. They allege that the plot mirrors past attempts to mortgage the party for favors. Instead, the PDP says it's focused on its ongoing digital membership registration, urged members to ignore the unauthorized congresses and await official dates on new political developments. Officials report that at least 122 people, including 82 civilians, have been killed in an attack on South Sudan's Ruweng administrative area on Sunday. Among the dead were the country commissioner and the executive director, while most civilian victims were women, children, and the elderly. The attackers remain unidentified, and authorities are yet to confirm the motive behind the violence. Local officials are calling for heightened security and measures to protect vulnerable communities. The incident underscores ongoing instability in parts of South Sudan, where clashes between armed groups continue to threaten civilians and hinder humanitarian operations. Meanwhile, medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières says 26 of its staff are missing following the renewed violence in South Sudan. The organization disclosed the workers were unaccounted for after clashes erupted in parts of the country, raising serious concerns about their safety. MSF says efforts are ongoing to establish contact and determine their whereabouts. The humanitarian group also called for the protection of civilians and aid workers, stressing that medical personnel must be allowed to operate safely and without obstruction amid the escalating insecurity. U.S. manufacturing activity expanded steadily in February, but rising input costs signaled renewed inflation risk. Data from the Institute of Supply Management showed its Purchasing Managers Index holding above the expansion threshold, supported by restocking and technology-driven demand. However, prices paid by factories surged to a multi-year high, reflecting tariff-related pressures, supply delays. Broader uncertainty followed renewed Middle East tensions after attacks involving Israel and Iran, which disrupted energy markets near the Strait of Hormuz. Despite policy support and tax incentives, manufacturing employment remained weak as firms managed costs cautiously. And that's it for the 6th edition this day. Remember, you may send your eyewitness report and comments to the number showing on your screen. That's on WhatsApp. That's +234 705 500 1212. We'd like you to follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV on all platforms at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Neota Igbe.